Far from any galaxy, in a place with no name because nothing has ever been there to name it, a single star is falling through the dark. It was thrown out of its galaxy long ago, in a violence it could not feel, and it has been falling ever since. Around it, in every direction, there is almost nothing. A few atoms drift in each cubic meter of space, so far apart they will never touch. The temperature is 2.7 degrees above the coldest anything can ever be. The star still burns. It pours light into the dark the way it always has, in every direction at once. But there is nothing out here for the light to land on. No planet, no dust, no other star close enough to be more than a faint smear, if it can be seen at all. The light simply leaves and keeps going and arrives nowhere. This is not the edge of the universe. This is not a strange or broken corner of it. This is what most of the universe is. The bright places, the galaxies, the warm, crowded islands of stars, those are the exception. The dark between them is the rule. And the dark is winning. What we're doing tonight is following that star into the emptiness and asking what the universe actually looks like from out there. Where the galaxies are gone, almost everything known about space is learned from inside a galaxy, looking out from a warm, crowded place that is nothing like the rest of it. By the time we are done, the night sky is going to read differently. The bright scatter of stars overhead will look less like the universe and more like a small fire in an enormous dark, and the dark will no longer seem like the background. It will seem like the thing that is actually there. Pull the camera back off the star, just a little, until the star itself becomes a point, and then hold there in the space the star is falling through. This is the part nobody looks at. The star is the bright thing, so the eye goes to the star, but the star is a speck, and the dark around it goes on without end, and the dark is the subject now. The bright thing was never the story. The thing it hangs inside was always the story, and it has simply been too large and too dim to draw the eye. It does not look like anything. That is the first thing about it. There is no surface, no floor, no wall, no edge to give the eye a place to rest. Light comes from no particular direction because there is no particular source. The faint glow that fills it arrives evenly from everywhere at once, a smooth, dim warmth that is barely warmth at all, and the eye, hunting for something to fix on, finds nothing and keeps hunting. A person dropped into the middle of it would have no way to tell which way was up, no landmark, no horizon, no near and no far, only the same featureless dark in every direction, and the star burning small and alone somewhere off to one side. The common picture of this place is wrong in a quiet way. Most people think of the space between galaxies the way they think of a clear night sky, a clean emptiness, a transparent nothing, with the real things hung inside it like ornaments on dark velvet. That picture treats the emptiness as simple as a kind of perfect vacuum, a pure and tidy absence. The reality is stranger and emptier and not tidy at all. The space between galaxies is not clean nothing, it is almost nothing, which is a different thing entirely, because the almost is the whole story. The almost is what makes it real instead of imaginary, measurable instead of abstract, a place instead of a concept. Here is what is actually there. In the deep space between galaxies, on average, there is roughly one atom in every cubic meter. One. A single atom of hydrogen, alone, in a box of empty space a meter wide on every side, with the next atom a meter or more away, and the one after that another meter beyond, each one drifting on its own, none of them ever touching, none of them close enough to know the others exist. They do not form a gas in any sense the word usually means. A gas is a crowd. This is a scattering of hermits, each in its own vast empty cell, never meeting, never colliding, drifting for the age of the universe without once brushing against another. That number is hard to feel until it is set against something the body already knows. The air in a closed kitchen, the ordinary air a hand moves through without noticing, the air that fills the space above a stove and around a table, packs so many atoms into the volume of a thimble that the count runs far past anything the mind can hold as a picture. The air is thick with them. Every breath draws in a number of atoms that would take longer to count, one per second, than the universe has existed. That is ordinary air, the stuff that seems like almost nothing, the stuff a hand waves through as if it were empty. Now take that same comparison all the way out. If a single grain of salt stood for one atom, the air in that kitchen would cram uncountable grains into a thimble, a dense bright dust of them, packed so tight they jostle and collide and never hold still, a glittering crush with no room between. The intergalactic medium, the proper name for the stuff between galaxies, would take those same grains and set them a meter apart in an otherwise empty room. One grain here, walk a meter across the bare floor, one grain there, walk another meter through nothing at all, one grain beyond. That is the density of the realest, largest, most common environment in the entire universe. A grain of salt, then a meter of nothing, then a grain, then a meter of nothing, on, for hundreds of millions of light years in every direction. And it is colder than cold has any ordinary right to be. The temperature out here sits near 2.7 degrees above absolute zero, the point past which nothing can get any colder, the true floor of all temperature, the place where motion itself nearly stops. Almost nothing in everyday experience comes within reach of it. The coldest natural place on the surface of the Earth, the deep Antarctic in the dead of its winter, is a furnace by comparison, hundreds of degrees warmer. The cold of the void is not the cold of winter, or the cold of the high mountains, or the cold of the deepest ocean trench. It is a different order of cold. It is the cold of a universe that has been spreading its warmth thinner and thinner for billions of years, until what is left is barely a whisper above the absolute bottom. That cold is not an absence of anything that was ever there. It is the residual warmth of the entire universe, the heat left over from the moment everything began, spread so thin across so much space that it has fallen almost all the way to the floor. The universe was once unimaginably hot, a dense furnace with no room in it for anything cool. And it has been cooling ever since, not because the heat leaked away to somewhere else, there is no somewhere else, but because the same heat has been stretched across ever more space, diluted by the expansion, until its temperature dropped this faint 2.7 degrees, the cooled ember of the original fire. That faint warmth has a name, and a history that reaches back further than anything else that can be measured. It is called the cosmic microwave background, and it is the oldest light there is, older than any star, older than any galaxy, the most ancient thing the universe still shows. It was released when the universe was young and hot, and so dense that light could not travel in a straight line without striking something. An age when the whole cosmos was an opaque glowing fog. Then the universe cooled and thinned enough to become clear, and in that single instant the light was set free to travel, and it has been crossing space ever since, stretching as it goes, cooling as it stretches, until now it arrives not as light the eye can see, but as a faint hum of warmth coming from every direction at the same time. Right now, every cubic meter of that emptiness is being crossed by that same ancient heat, light that has been travelling since the universe first became transparent, arriving from no direction in particular because it comes from everywhere at once. It fills the void completely. There is no true darkness anywhere, no spot the old glow does not reach, no shadow deep enough to escape it, but it is the wrong kind of light. It cannot warm an object the way a nearby star would. It cannot light a face, or cast a shadow, or be seen as anything but the faintest even hush. It is just there, a dim glow across all of space, the ghost of a fire that went out before there were stars to take its place. So the void is not empty in the way an empty room is empty. An empty room still has air, still has a floor, still has walls that hold a shape, still has a sense of inside and outside. The void has none of that. It has a handful of stray atoms per cubic meter, a temperature a few degrees off the absolute bottom, and a faint glow that warms nothing, and that is all. An object set down in the middle of it would have nothing to push against, nothing to fall toward with any urgency, nothing close enough to pull on it with any force worth naming. It would simply hang there or drift in whatever direction it was already moving, in a dark that does not end and a cold that does not lift, for as long as the universe lasts. Bring the lone star back into the frame now, the one from the opening, burning in the center of all this. It is doing what stars do. Deep in its core, hydrogen is being crushed into helium under pressure beyond anything the surface of a world could survive, and that crushing releases a flood of light, and the light pushes outward through the layers of the star and off its surface and into space, in every direction at once the way it would anywhere. The star does not know where it is. It cannot know. There is no part of a star that takes in its surroundings or registers its address. It burns the same in the void as it would in the crowded heart of a galaxy, faithful to its own furnace, indifferent to the dark. But the light, leaving, finds nothing. In a galaxy, a star's light strikes other stars, clouds of gas lit into glowing colour, planets warmed and turned, dust that scatters it into a soft haze, the broad faint shine of 100 billion neighbours. The light lands. It is caught. It is part of a place, woven into the brightness of a whole crowded region. Out here the light leaves the surface and spreads into the dark and keeps spreading, and there is no planet to warm, no dust to catch it, no cloud to colour, no neighbour close enough to be lit by it. The light does not stop because nothing stops it. It simply travels, thinning as it goes, for as long as the universe allows, and arrives, in any meaningful sense, nowhere at all. The silence of it is the part that settles into the chest and stays. Sound cannot cross this place, not slowly, not faintly, not at all, because sound needs something to travel through, air or water or rock, some material dense enough to carry the wave from one place to the next, and there is no such material here. The handful of atoms per cubic meter are far too sparse to pass a sound along. The star burns without a sound, and if it were ever to die, to run out of fuel and collapse and detonate in the enormous violence that ends a large star's life, the explosion that would shatter windows across a continent if it happened near a world, would be utterly silent here, a soundless flash of light in a dark that swallows it without echo. Nothing out here would hear it, nothing would be close enough to feel the blast, and the light of it would race outward and land on nothing, the same as all the rest. This is the medium the rest of the story moves through, not a backdrop, not a gap between the parts that matter, a real place with real properties that can be measured to fine precision, the thinnest, coldest, quietest environment the universe contains, and the star at the centre of it is not lost in some exotic accident of fate. It is simply somewhere ordinary, somewhere typical, somewhere that looks like most of everything there is. Because that is the next thing, the thing that turns this from a portrait of one lonely place into a portrait of the whole. If this is what one patch of the void is like, the obvious question is how rare such patches are. How much of the universe is this thin, this cold, this empty? A reasonable guess, the guess almost anyone would make, is that places like this are the exception, scattered gaps in an otherwise crowded cosmos, the unusual dead spots in a universe that is mostly full. That guess is exactly backward. This kind of emptiness is not a rare corner of the universe, it is almost the entire thing. And the proof of that is not a calculation or a theory or a clever argument. It is a place that has already been found, charted across hundreds of millions of light years, and given a name. Now leave the single cubic meter behind, and the single star, and pull the camera back and back and back again, faster than any light could carry the view, until the lone star is gone, and its galaxy is gone, and even the cluster of galaxies around it has shrunk to a knot of light, and keep pulling back until the entire structure of the universe lies open below like a thing seen from outside. At this scale, the galaxies disappear, They are too small to register, each one a speck lost in something far larger. What remains is something else entirely, something that only shows itself from far enough away that the individual lights blur together into a pattern. What appears is a web, threads of faint light, drawn out long and thin across distances that have no comparison in ordinary life, joining at bright knots, stretching into sheets and walls, the whole thing branching and connecting and folding back on itself like something grown rather than built, like the veins in a leaf, or the threads of a spider's work, or the tangled roots of an enormous tree. This is the cosmic web, the largest pattern there is, the arrangement of all the matter in the universe at the grandest scale anything can be measured. The threads are made of galaxies, strung together in their thousands and their millions along the filaments. The knots where the threads cross are clusters, the densest gatherings of galaxies anywhere, blazing nodes in the lattice. From far enough out, the whole universe looks like this, a vast tangle of glowing thread, suspended in the dark. But the thread is not the point. Look at what the thread wraps around. Between the filaments, inside the spaces the web encloses, are dark cells, enormous rounded hollows where the thread does not go, where the light thins to almost nothing and the dark takes over. These are the voids. And the first shock of the cosmic web, the thing that reverses the whole intuition in a single moment of seeing, is the proportion. The bright thread is not the bulk of it. The thread is thin, the dark cells are huge, the web is mostly the holes, the structure is mostly the gaps in the structure. The numbers behind that picture are settled, measured across decades of mapping galaxy after galaxy and charting where they sit. The voids take up most of the volume of the universe. Not some of it, not a large share of it, most of it. The matter, all the galaxies and all the stars and all the clusters and all the bright filaments, is crammed into the thin boundaries, the walls and the threads, while the great rounded hollows in between, taking up the majority of all the space there is, hold almost nothing. The galaxies are not spread evenly through space like grains scattered across a field. They are pressed into the cracks around a structure made mostly of emptiness, clinging to the surfaces of enormous dark bubbles. The web was not built. It grew, slowly, out of almost nothing. In the early universe, the matter was spread nearly smooth, with only the faintest unevenness. Some regions are hair denser than others, differences so slight they would have been impossible to see. But gravity does not need much to work with. The slightly denser regions pulled a little harder, and so gathered a little more matter, and so pulled harder still. And over billions of years, that small head start ran away with itself. The dense places drew matter in from all around them, growing into filaments and walls and clusters, and the regions they drew it from were left thinner and thinner, emptied by the very pulling that built the bright places. The voids did not form by having their matter removed all at once. They formed by giving it up, slowly, to the growing web around their edges, drained from the inside out across the whole history of the universe. This is the part that takes a moment to land, because it inverts the picture almost everyone carries without ever examining it. The night sky teaches a kind of lie, an honest one, a mistake built into the place the looking happens from. It shows stars everywhere the eye turns, a sky so full of them that the gaps between seem like the small thing, and the lights seem like the rule, the default, the way space simply is. But that sky is the view from inside a galaxy, from the middle of one of the densest, brightest, most crowded places the universe has anywhere. It is the least typical view it is possible to have. Step outside the galaxy, outside the cluster, far enough back to see the web hole, and the lights collapse into thin bright thread, and the dark opens up into the overwhelming majority of everything, and the lie corrects itself. The fullness was a trick of standing in the one crowded spot. There is a specific place that makes all of this concrete, that takes the abstract proportion and gives it a location and a size and a name. It is the emptiest large region ever charted, and it sits behind a particular part of the sky in the direction of a constellation, and from that constellation it takes its name. It is called the Boötes void, and it is roughly 330 million light-years across. That distance means almost nothing stated plainly, so set it against the things inside it. The galaxies are not small. A galaxy like the Milky Way spans about 100,000 light-years from edge to edge, a wheel of 300 billion stars, so wide that its own light takes 1,000 centuries to cross it. The Boötes void could hold more than 3,000 such galaxies laid edge to edge across its width, a line of full galaxies, each 100,000 light-years wide, stretched end to end and still not reaching across the whole. And in a normal stretch of the universe, a region that size, that volume, would contain something on the order of 10,000 galaxies packed along its filaments and scattered through its space, a fair sample of the crowded cosmos. The Boötes void contains around 60, where 10,000 would be expected. A hole so empty that more than 9,900 galaxies are simply missing. Never formed, never gathered, a region the universe came close to forgetting to fill at all. It is not that the galaxies were taken away. They were never there. The matter that should have collected into thousands of bright islands instead stayed thin and scattered, and the region grew into a great rounded emptiness while the galaxies gathered everywhere else, along the walls, leaving this enormous space nearly bare. Drift toward the center of it, where the emptiness is deepest. There is a galaxy there, one of the lonely 60, hanging near the middle of the great hollow. From the surface of a world in that galaxy, the sky would be almost perfectly black. The nearest other galaxy is so far away that it would show, at the very best, as a faint smudge, a stain on the dark that the eye might not even register without help. And most of the sky would hold nothing at all, no band of light across the dark, no scattered companions, no neighbours near enough to resolve into anything with a shape. Just the black and the faint old glow behind it, and the galaxy's own stars wheeling slowly overhead with nothing beyond them. Hold the camera on that central galaxy and let the scene play. Its spiral arms turn, slow as everything is slow on this scale, the stars along them burning and being born and dying in their ordinary numbers, the whole wheel of it doing exactly what a galaxy does. A world somewhere in those arms has a day and a night, a sky that brightens and darkens as it turns, and when the night comes, the dark that arrives is not the ordinary dark of a sky full of distant suns and a faint band of the home galaxy and the scattered glow of neighbours. It is a deeper dark than that. The home stars are there, near and bright, the local sky intact, but past them, where any other sky would show the soft light of other galaxies, of clusters, of the crowded distance, there is only black, unbroken, going down and down with nothing in it. The emptiest night any sky anywhere can offer. The galaxy turns under it, age after age, lighting nothing beyond its own edge, the most isolated bright thing in the charted universe, and entirely unaware of it. Consider what that would mean for anything that ever looked up from such a place. A civilization that arose on a world inside that central galaxy would look out at night and see its own stars, the familiar local sky, and beyond them, nothing. No other galaxies, no sense that the universe extended past its own island. It would have no reason even to suspect that other galaxies existed at all, no hint in the sky to point the way, no faint scatter of distant light to raise the question. The whole concept of a universe full of galaxies, the picture taken entirely for granted from inside a crowded region, would be invisible to it, unguessable. It would not have discovered that other galaxies existed until it built telescopes powerful enough to see across the gulf, instruments able to pull those distant faint smudges out of the black and resolve them into what they truly are. Until that day, its universe would seem to be one galaxy, alone, surrounded by an empty dark that simply went on forever in every direction. Right now, near the center of the Boötes void, a galaxy hangs with no companion close enough to appear as anything but a faint smudge, its sky almost perfectly black. It is not a thought experiment, not a hypothetical, not a scene built to make a point. It is there, tonight, real, turning slowly in the middle of a hole 330 million light-years wide, its starlight pouring out into a dark that holds almost nothing to catch it. Whatever exists in that galaxy, if anything does, lives under the emptiest sky the universe has anywhere, and would have every reason to believe its island was the whole of creation. To carry the scale into something the body knows, set the populated parts of the universe against a map of a single continent. Let the crowded regions, the filaments and the clusters, be the cities and towns, the places where the lights of human settlement gather thick along the coasts and the rivers and the roads, bright clusters of habitation strung across the land. Then the Bootes void is a stretch of that continent so empty that a traveller could set out walking across it, and walk for an entire lifetime, from youth to old age, and in all that walking pass a single farmhouse, one lone structure on the whole vast journey, and never once see the next one rise over the horizon. That is the density of the emptiest place ever found. One farmhouse in a lifetime of walking, with nothing else from edge to edge, and it is not an oddity, not a freak, not a broken corner of an otherwise full world. It is the closest thing there is to a picture of what the universe mostly is. And the Bootes void is not even alone in its kind. The cosmic web is riddled with voids, hollow after hollow. Most of them smaller than this one, but built the same way. Great rounded emptinesses tiled across all of space, with the bright filaments threaded between them. The Bootes void is only the largest and emptiest yet, charted near enough to map in detail, the clearest example of a thing that is everywhere. The universe is not a scattering of galaxies with a few empty patches. It is a froth of enormous empty cells, with galaxies smeared along the thin films between them, like the dark interiors of a vast mass of bubbles, each bubble a void, the galaxies confined to the soap. The empty cells are the rule, the thin bright films are all that anything lives on. Mapping a void from the outside, seeing it laid open in the web, charted and measured and named, is one kind of understanding, falling all the way into the deepest one, and staying there, at the dead centre, where the walls of galaxies are too far to matter, and the numbers stop being abstract and become the whole of the sky, is another kind entirely. The emptiest place ever charted is not a flaw in the universe, not a missing piece, not a region that somehow failed to become what it should have been. It is the closest thing there is to a picture of what the universe mostly is. And from the inside, with the walls gone and the dark complete, it is far stranger than any map seen from outside can show. Hold at the dead centre of a great void and let everything settle into stillness. There is no motion here worth the name. The walls of galaxies that ring this hollow are so far away that they do not pull, do not press, do not register as anything but the faintest scatter of light around the rim of an enormous dark. In every direction, the nearest galaxies are so distant they are barely points, pinpricks lost against the black, too far to gather into a shape, too faint to throw any light that matters. The dark dominates completely. This is the view from inside the proportion, the place the map was only ever trying to describe from outside. And the proportion is the thing to sit with now, because it is larger than it first sounded. Act by act, the void has grown in this story. It began as the situation of one star, a lonely accident, a single object adrift. Then it became a setting, a kind of place, with measurable properties, thin and cold and quiet. Then it became a mapped region, the Bootes void, charted and named, and given a size. But all of that still framed the void as something out there, somewhere distant and exotic, a strange location to visit and then leave behind. The proportion says otherwise. The voids are not pockets in a full universe. They are the bulk of it. The full places are the pockets. The strangeness was never out there. The strangeness is the ordinary condition of nearly all of space, and the bright, crowded places are the rare exception that has been mistaken for the rule. Turn that over slowly, because it changes the address of everything. Most of the volume of the universe is void. The cosmic web's galaxies, all of them, every star and world and cluster, are confined to the thin filaments and the walls, the boundaries of the great hollows. If the universe were drained of light and only its shape remained, what would be left is mostly the rounded dark of the voids, with a thin bright lattice threaded around them, like the lines of mortar around a wall of enormous black bricks, except the mortar is where everything lives and the bricks are nearly empty. The emptiness is not the gap between the structure, the emptiness is most of the structure. The thing that looks like background is the foreground, and the thing that looks like the main event is a thin glaze on the surface of the dark. It is the kind of reversal that does not stay reversed in the mind without effort. The eye, the imagination, the ordinary sense of how things are, all keep snapping back to the comfortable picture, galaxies everywhere, and a little empty space between. The picture is wrong, and knowing it is wrong does not make it stop returning, because everything anyone has ever directly seen of the universe was seen from inside the bright exception, where the picture looks true. The dark majority has to be reasoned out, mapped, measured, held in the mind against the constant pull of the crowded local sky. The universe shows its full face only to instruments and to calculation. To the eye, it goes on lying, gently, showing a sky full of light, and hiding the dark that holds the light the way a room holds a candle. So the question that arrives next is not a comfortable one. If the void is the rule, and the crowded places are the exception, where does our own corner sit? The easy assumption, the one that feels safe and reasonable, is that we live in a typical average patch of a fairly uniform universe, neither unusually crowded nor unusually empty, a normal place from which the rest of the cosmos can be fairly judged. It is the natural assumption, the modest one, the one that asks for no special status, and it is starting to look wrong. Measurements of how many galaxies surround the Milky Way, counted out to enormous distances and tallied against what an average region should hold, suggest that our region is significantly underdense. Not a little, significantly. The count of galaxies around us, out to a vast radius, comes up short of the average, short by enough that it cannot easily be explained away as a quirk of the counting. There appear to be fewer galaxies near us than a fair sample of the universe should contain. The region this thin has a name. It is called the KBC void, or sometimes the local hole, and it is roughly 2 billion light-years across, a stretch of underdense space so large that the Bhoota's void could be set inside it many times over, with our own galaxy apparently sitting somewhere within it. Let that resettle the whole frame. The exotic place is not somewhere else. The strange, empty, lonely region the story has been circling, the one held at arm's length as a distant destination, is not distant. We may already be near the edge of one. The Milky Way, the local group, the familiar crowded sky, all of it appears to sit inside a large underdense region, a hole in the cosmic web wider than almost anything else identified anywhere near us. The tour of a strange location turns out to be a description of an address. This is not a report from far away. It is closer to a report from the porch, a description of the ground the looking has been done from all along. There is something almost vertiginous in that, and it is worth being precise about why. It is not that the local hole is empty the way the Bhoota's void is empty. It is not. There are galaxies here, plenty of them, the local group close at hand and the great clusters within reach of a telescope, a sky that looks full and rich and crowded. It is that the baseline shifts under the feet. The crowded sky overhead, the one that makes the universe look so full, is the view from a region that is itself emptier than average, perched somewhere near the rim of a larger hollow. The fullness was always an illusion of vantage, and now it is an illusion of vantage held from inside an underdense region, an exception nested inside an exception, and the dark beyond it is not the strange thing. The dark is the normal thing. This lit porch, this crowded local sky, is the oddity, and it sits in a region that is itself unusually bare. And the crowding that does surround the local group is itself a thin thing, easy to overstate. The night sky from a world inside the Milky Way looks dense with stars, thousands of them visible to the eye, a river of light across the dark. But every one of those visible stars belongs to the home galaxy, the local crowd, the single bright island. The galaxies, the other islands, are almost all too faint to see without instruments, smudges that only a telescope resolves. The naked eye, looking up from the most crowded kind of place the universe has, sees essentially one galaxy's worth of stars and reads the whole sky as full. It never sees the dark that the one galaxy hangs in. The fullness it reports is the fullness of standing inside the vault and mistaking the vault for the world. To weigh the proportion in something the hand can hold, turn every atom in the universe into a coin and spread the coins across the whole volume of space. Not gathered into stacks, not heaped into vaults, but distributed evenly across all of it, every cubic meter of every void and every filament given its fair share of the wealth. Standing in a void then would mean standing in a region that holds a small fraction of a single coin, less than one whole coin in a space a person could walk across in an afternoon. The wealth of the universe spreads so thin that no ordinary place has even one piece of it to call its own. And a galaxy, against that, would be a vault, a dense, impossible concentration, a hoard of coins stacked into a tiny bright volume, while the rest of space goes begging from horizon to horizon. The vaults are real, they exist. A person can stand inside one, on a world inside a galaxy, surrounded by more wealth than the eye can take in. But the vaults are vanishingly rare, scattered points of concentration in a cosmos that is overwhelmingly, almost completely broke. That is the true distribution of matter. Not even, not fair. A few rare vaults, blazing with concentrated wealth, and everywhere else, a fraction of a coin per region, and most regions holding even less than that. The eye, standing in a vault, sees only the vault and concludes the universe is rich. It is the conclusion the vault encourages, but the vault is the exception, the freak concentration, and the true face of the universe is the empty space between, where the wealth is spread so thin, it might as well not be there at all. The local whole, if the measurements hold, changes more than a sense of address. It bends the look of the wider universe from the inside. A region that is underdense has less matter than average pulling on the space around it, so the galaxies near its edges feel a slight outward tug toward the denser regions beyond, drawn gently toward the fuller parts of the web. From inside such a hole, the expansion of the universe can appear a little faster than it does from a fairer vantage, because the local thinness adds its own small drift to the larger motion. The very emptiness of the neighborhood tilts the instruments, colors the readings, makes the universe look subtly different from how it would look from an average patch. The place the looking is done from is not neutral, it leans, and it leans toward emptiness, and the readings lean with it. Living inside a relatively empty region, then, is not unusual at all. It is not bad luck or a strange coincidence or a sign of anything gone wrong. It is closer to the default condition of where matter sits, because most of where matter could sit is empty, and any given place picked at random across the whole volume of space is far more likely to be poor than rich, far more likely to be void than vault. The surprise is not that our region is underdense. In the long view, the surprise would have been finding it crowded. The crowded places are where the looking happens, because the looking can only happen where there is enough matter to make something that looks. But that is a bias of where things can exist, not a fact about what most of the universe is like. Most of the universe is the empty part, and the empty part has no one in it to call it home. That last point is the quiet weight of the whole proportion. The empty part is not only most of the universe, it is the part with no witness. Every place that could hold a mind, a world, an eye, a measurement, is one of the rare bright vaults, because only the vaults gather enough matter to make such things possible. So everything that has ever known anything about the universe has known it from inside the exception and the rule, the dark majority, has gone unseen and unfelt and unmourned across the whole age of the cosmos, vast beyond the bright places and empty of anyone to notice it is there. The universe is mostly a thing with no one in it, and the someones are all crowded into the thin glowing margins, looking out, mistaking the margins for the page. There is a further turn in this, quieter than the rest, and it concerns time as much as space. The voids are not only emptier than the rest of the universe, they are growing emptier, faster than anywhere else. The same gravity that built the bright web by draining the voids has never stopped working. The matter that remains inside a void is still being pulled, slowly, toward the denser walls around its edges, still draining outward, leaving the center thinner with every age that passes. A void is not a finished thing. It is a region in the act of emptying, and it will go on emptying for as long as there is anything left in it to pull away. The deepest part of the deepest void is not the universe at rest. It is the universe still in the middle of clearing itself out, and the clearing has a direction, and the direction is always toward more empty. There is a strange dignity in what that draining builds, even as it empties. Every coin pulled out of a void center goes to feed a wall, a filament, a cluster, the bright crowded places where stars and worlds and the conditions for anything at all can gather. The voids give up their matter so the web can blaze. The emptiness is not wasted in the building of the bright places, it is spent. The dark cells are not failures of the universe to make galaxies. They are the quarries the galaxies were cut from, the regions emptied to supply the thin films where everything lives. And the quarries are most of the volume, because it takes an enormous amount of emptied space to gather enough matter into one thin bright film to make even a single galaxy shine. Hold the stillness of the void center a moment longer, because there is a turn coming and it deserves a clean break from the comfort of abstraction. So far, the void has been a thing to look across, a distance, a volume, a proportion measured and described from the relative safety of a galaxy. Even if that galaxy now turns out to sit near the edge of a hollow, the voids have been the space between the real things, the medium light has to cross, the emptiness that surrounds the bright places without quite touching them. But the void is not only the space we look across, it is the space real objects fall into and never come back from. Somewhere out in that thin cold dark, beyond the last galaxy of the web, there are things that were once part of a crowded place and are now part of nothing, objects that crossed out of the light and kept going, falling, the way the star in the opening was falling and is still falling. The void is not just a distance to be measured from a safe remove, it is a destination, and there are travellers already on the way to it, and some have already arrived, and they are not coming back. The natural question then, the one the stillness has been holding back, is whether anything solid ever ends up truly adrift in this, with no galaxy at all, no filament, no companion, alone in the deep cold dark the way the opening star is alone. The answer is yes, it happens. The universe has more than one way of doing it, and at least one of the things it has done can be named, tracked and clocked, a real object with a real speed, caught in the act, on a path that ends in the dark. To see how a thing ends up out there, the camera has to leave the silence of the void center and go back to the most crowded, most violent place a galaxy contains, because that is where the throwing begins, in the one part of a galaxy that is anything but still. Drop the stillness. Drop the slow weight of proportion. Fall inward now, toward light and motion and force, into the crowded core of a galaxy, where the stars are packed so close that the night would never be dark, where they crowd and swarm around a single point of impossible mass, and watch what happens to a star that wanders too near the center. The void was silence and distance. This is the opposite of both, the loudest, densest, most violent place a galaxy has, and it is where the journey into the void begins. The core of a large galaxy is nothing like the quiet suburbs where most stars live. Out in the spiral arms, where a star like the sun drifts, The nearest neighbour is light years away, so far that it shows only as another point of light, and the space between stars is mostly empty. The core is not like that. Here the stars are jammed together, thousands of them in a space that, out in the arms, would hold only a handful. They crowd close, they pass near one another, they move fast, whipping around the centre on tight orbits that carry them through the densest crush of starlight anywhere in the galaxy. A world in such a place would have no true night. The sky would blaze with near suns, a crowd of them bright enough to read by, the dark crowded out by sheer numbers. And at the very middle of it all sits the thing that rules everything nearby. A black hole of enormous mass, millions of times the mass of the sun, compressed into a single point, its gravity reaching out to bend the path of every star that comes near. It does not shine, it gives off no light of its own. It is known only by what it does to everything around it, the way the stars near it move, whipped into tight, fast orbits by a pull that comes from a place the eye cannot see. The core of the galaxy turns around it like water circling a drain, and the drain is a hole in everything, and the stars that come too close to it do not come back unchanged. The numbers attached to that central mass are their own kind of vertigo. The black hole at the heart of the Milky Way holds the mass of millions of suns, all of it pressed into a region that by the standards of a galaxy is a single point. Its pull is strong enough to swing whole stars around it in tight years-long orbits, stars that have been clocked racing around the centre at thousands of kilometres a second, faster than anything in the calm outer galaxy moves. Those orbiting stars are how the whole is weighed, since it gives off no light to measure. They trace its gravity in their paths, circling a darkness, and from the speed of their circling its mass is read. The centre of the galaxy is ruled by a thing known only through the violence it does to the motion of everything near it. Most stars keep their distance, circling at a safe remove, held in long, stable orbits that last for ages. The black hole's pull is enormous up close, but falls away with distance like any gravity. And most of the core's stars orbit far enough out to stay safe, wheeling around the centre for billions of years without ever coming near the edge. But the core is crowded, and in a crowd, things collide. Every so often, in the crush and jostle of so many stars, a pair of them passes too close to each other, near enough that their own gravity grips and swings them, and in that swinging one of the two is flung inward, thrown onto a new path, a path that carries it down toward the black hole at the centre, on a curve that should end in destruction. Follow that one star down. It falls inward, faster and faster, the black hole's gravity seizing it and accelerating it past any speed it ever held in its long, safe orbit, pulling it toward the point of impossible mass at the galaxy's heart. By every expectation, the story should end there, the star torn apart and swallowed, pulled into the dark and gone. Sometimes that is exactly what happens, but not always. Sometimes the geometry is just so, the angle of the fall just right, and instead of being swallowed, the star is thrown. The encounter near the black hole acts like a slingshot. The star, falling in, whips around the point of enormous mass on a path that bends hard, and the bending flings it back outward at tremendous speed, faster than it fell in, faster than anything it could have reached on its own. The black hole's gravity, which should have been the end of it, instead becomes the engine that launches it, and the star comes whipping back out of the core, but not on the path it came in by. It comes out pointed away, not back into the galaxy, straight out of it, on a one-way climb that nothing will reverse. The black hole flings it like a stone from a sling, and the star, suddenly moving faster than the galaxy can hold, begins the long fall outward that ends in the void. This is not a model, or a guess, or a scene built to make the point. It has been caught in the act. There is a star, catalogued by astronomers but never given a common name, that is doing exactly this, right now. It was slingshot away from the black hole at the centre of the Milky Way roughly 5 million years ago, whipped around that point of enormous mass and flung outward, and it is now moving away at more than 1,700 kilometers a second. 1,700 kilometers in a single second. In the time it takes to say the number aloud, the star has crossed a distance that would take a fast aircraft on Earth the better part of a day to fly. It is one of the fastest moving stars ever found, and it is fast enough, well fast enough, to escape the galaxy completely and never return. That speed is the part to hold on to, because escape is not a small thing for a star. A galaxy's gravity is enormous, the combined pull of hundreds of billions of stars all working together to hold the whole structure in. And that pull normally keeps its members for the entire life of the universe. Stars are born in a galaxy, live in it, die in it, and their remnants stay. To break free, to climb out of that pull and never fall back, a star has to be moving faster than the galaxy can claw it back, fast enough that the long reach of all those billions of stars cannot bend its path into a return. Almost nothing moves that fast. This star does. It is past the threshold, over the line, moving faster than the Milky Way can hold. The galaxy will not get it back. It is leaving, and it is not coming home, and there is no force ahead of it large enough to change that. Think about where a star like that is bound, given enough time. Not to another galaxy. The nearest large galaxy to the Milky Way is more than 2 million light years away, and a star crossing toward it at 1,700 kilometers a second would take many billions of years to arrive, longer than the time it has left to burn. Long before it could reach anything, its fuel would run low, its light would fade, and it would cross out beyond the Milky Way's edge, into the open dark between galaxies with most of its life behind it. It is not traveling toward a destination, it is traveling away from one, and the away has no far shore close enough to matter. The galaxy is the only home it will ever have been near, and it is leaving the galaxy, and there is nothing ahead within reach to take its place. Bring the camera in close on the moment of the throw, and let it play. The star comes in fast, a bright point falling toward the dark center, and as it nears the black hole its path curves, harder and harder, bending around the unseen mass like a comet rounding a sun, but far more violently, the curve tightening to a whip. For an instant it is moving faster than any star in the galaxy, slung around the point of no return at a speed that would carry it across the solar system in hours. And then the curve straightens, and the star is climbing, pointed out and away, the crowded core falling behind it, the bright crush of neighbor stars thinning as it rises out of the dense center and into the thinner reaches of the galaxy, gaining height, gaining distance, on a line that runs straight off the edge of everything. To put the violence of that into the body, imagine a ball struck so hard that it clears not just the stadium but the city around it, and then the country, and then the planet itself, never landing, the stands long gone from view, the ground falling away beneath it, still rising, still climbing, with nothing ahead to stop it, and no arc that ever bends back down. An ordinary struck ball rises, slows, stops and falls, its whole flight a curve that returns to the ground. This one does not return. There is no top to its trajectory, no point where it slows and turns and comes home. It rises forever. The stadium shrinks, the city shrinks, the whole world shrinks beneath it and keeps shrinking, and the ball climbs out into the dark on a line that never curves back. That is the path of an escaping star. A throw with no landing, anywhere, ever. There is more than one way for the universe to do this, and the second way is quieter and far larger in scale. When two galaxies collide, and they do collide, drawn together by gravity across millions of years until they meet and pass through one another, the collision does not crush their stars together. The stars are so far apart, even inside a galaxy, that they almost never strike one another, even when two whole galaxies pass through the same space. Two galaxies can merge and barely a single pair of stars will touch. What happens instead is gravitational, and it is vast. The gravity of the two galaxies tangles and tears, the orderly orbits ripped into chaos, and in that chaos stars by the billion are flung out of both galaxies entirely, stripped away from any home, scattered into the space between. Those scattered stars do not vanish. They keep shining. Spread thin through the space between the galaxies of a cluster, the stripped stars give off a faint, smooth glow, too diffuse to resolve into individual points. A wash of light with no galaxy behind it, no spiral, no shape, just a soft, even shine filling the dark between the great islands. It has a name. It is called intra-cluster light, and it is exactly what it sounds like. Starlight from suns that belong to no galaxy at all, the combined shine of billions of orphans cast out in ancient collisions, drifting now in the space between the islands, lighting nothing, holding nothing, bound to no home, simply glowing on alone in the dark that was supposed to be the gap between the real things. Hold on that diffuse glow for a moment. Because of all the images in this story, it is the easiest to miss and the hardest to forget once seen. In the great clusters of galaxies, where dozens or hundreds of galaxies gather in the densest knots of the cosmic web, the space between the galaxies is not black, it shines, faintly, with this orphan light, the pooled glow of every star ever stripped from every galaxy that ever fell through that cluster. It is the light of the dispossessed, gathered into a haze that fills the spaces no galaxy claims. A star in that glow has no spiral arm to belong to, no galactic center to orbit, no companions near enough to name. It hangs in the dark between the islands and shines, one of billions doing the same. A population larger than the stars of many a galaxy, and yet belonging to nothing, recorded on no map of any galaxy because it is the citizen of none. So the lone star of the opening is not a metaphor and not a thought experiment. It is a category of real object, produced by the universe in at least two different ways, by the slingshot of a black hole and by the wreckage of colliding galaxies. And examples are out there now, moving, glowing, falling. The universe makes castaways. It has always made them in every age by every available means. Some it flings out one at a time, like that catalogued star climbing away from the Milky Way's heart on its single violent throw. Some it scatters by the billion in the slow wreckage of collision, whole populations of stars torn loose at once and left to drift. Either way, the result is the same. A star, alone, outside any galaxy, falling through the dark, shining at nothing. Right now, that fast-moving star is still climbing, still gaining distance, already on the one-way path that ends with the galaxy shrinking behind it into a single point of light. In a few tens of millions of years, it will be well clear of the Milky Way's outskirts, past the last of the outer stars, out where the galaxy is only a glow behind it. In time, it will be far enough that the whole galaxy, the entire wheel of 300 billion stars that made it and flung it away, will be no more than a smudge in its sky, and then a point, and then perhaps too faint to pick out at all against the dark. It does not slow, it does not turn. The slingshot that threw it set its course 5 million years ago, and the course runs outward into the thin cold dark, and it will run outward for the rest of the life of the star. Being cast into the void, though, is not the worst part of what waits for such a star. The throwing is violent but quick, over in the span of a single tight curve around a black hole. The climb out of the galaxy is long but finite, a matter of tens of millions of years, brief against the life of a star. The cruelest part comes after, once the star is fully out, fully alone, with the galaxy gone behind it, and only the dark ahead. The cruelest part is the distance to the next thing, the sheer width of the gap it would have to cross to reach anything at all, and what that distance does to time, and to light, and to the meaning of being seen. That is the crossing, and it is where the whole story bends from a tale of how a star gets out into a tale of what the getting out actually costs. The star is fully out now. The galaxy that made it is a smudge behind it, falling away with every passing age. And ahead there is only the dark, unbroken level, going on without feature in every direction, with the star's own light streaming away in front of it into nothing. The motion that mattered so much in the last view, the 1700 kilometers a second, the violent slingshot speed that tore it free of a galaxy, means almost nothing here. Against the width of what lies ahead, even that speed is a crawl. Against the width of what lies ahead, even the speed of light begins to look slow. Because this is where the distances stop being merely large and start being something else, something the ordinary words for size cannot reach. The galaxy the star left behind took tens of thousands of years to cross at the speed of light, edge to edge, a span already past easy imagining. The void ahead takes hundreds of millions. The change from one to the other is not a change of degree, it is a change in what light itself can do and what it cannot. Light is the fastest thing there is. Nothing in the universe moves faster, nothing carries energy or contact or news of any kind quicker than light. And the speed of it is not a local rule, but a law woven into the structure of space, the same everywhere, unbreakable. Light crosses the distance from the Sun to the Earth in about 8 minutes. It crosses from one side of the Milky Way to the other in 100,000 years, a span that already dwarfs the whole history of anything that has ever lived on Earth. That same light, set loose to cross the Boötes void, would need well over 300 million years just to span it once, one crossing, edge to edge, at the fastest speed the universe allows. And the Boötes void is only one void, and not even the whole of the distance the star faces. Beyond the far wall of any one void lies a thin filament of galaxies, and beyond that another void, and beyond that another wall, the cosmic web stretching on in every direction, void after void after void. To cross from one populated region to a genuinely different one, a beam might have to traverse not a single hollow, but a string of them, hundreds of millions of light years each, the crossings adding up into spans of time that leave the history of life on Earth far behind. The 300 million years to cross the Boötes void is not the journey, it is one step of the journey, and most of the steps are empty, and there are more of them than the eye laid open on the web could ever count. Set that against the history of life to feel the real length of it. 300 million years ago, complex animal life on Earth was young. The first creatures had only recently dragged themselves out of the water and onto the land, learning to breathe air, hauling their weight across ground that had never felt a footstep. There were no flowers yet, no birds, no grass. The great reptiles had not appeared, and would not for tens of millions of years more. The continents themselves sat in different places, joined in shapes no map would recognize. A beam of light setting out across the Boötes void in that ancient age, when the first vertebrates were just learning to live out of the sea, would only now, in the present moment, be arriving at the far side. A single beam, in transit, older than every footprint and forest and city that has ever existed, older than the dinosaurs, older than flowers, older than the shape of the present continents, still crossing, not yet arrived, 300 million years into a single trip across one empty place. There is something in that figure that resists being held, and it is worth slowing down for. The whole rise of complex life on land, every creature that has ever walked or crawled or flown, every forest that has ever grown and fallen, every species that has appeared and vanished across the long ages, the dinosaurs in their entire reign, and the slow climb after them to everything alive now, all of it fits inside the time a single ray of light needs to cross one void. The light does not notice. It simply goes, at its one fixed speed, while empires of life rise and fall on a distant world it will never reach, and when the light at last touches the far side, all of that history is already over and gone, and the light has done nothing but travel through the dark the entire time. That is one beam, on one trip, across one void. But the star at the center of such a place does not send one beam, it pours light out continuously, in every direction at once for as long as it burns, an unbroken flood streaming off its surface every second of every year of its entire life. And here is where the void does the thing that nothing else in the universe does, the thing that turns sheer distance into something close to erasure. A star burns for a long time. A star like the sun shines for roughly 10 billion years, a steady outpouring of light across a span of time that beggars comparison, enough light to warm worlds, to drive weather and oceans and the slow machinery of life, to fill a whole region of a galaxy with warmth and brightness for longer than the Earth has existed. That is what a star's light does when there is something nearby to receive it. The light lands, it is caught. It becomes heat on a planet's surface, colour in a cloud of gas, the faint shine that lets one star be seen from another. It becomes part of a place, woven into the life of a crowded region, spent on something. Out in the void, the light lands on nothing. It leaves the star and spreads outward, and as it spreads it thins, the way the light of a single candle thins to nothing across a great dark field, growing fainter with every step away from the flame, until it cannot light a page, cannot light a hand, cannot be told from the dark. Except the field here is not a meadow, it is hundreds of millions of light years wide, and there is no far wall to catch what is left of the light when it finally arrives, no edge where the spreading stops. The light spreads and thins and keeps going and finds no planet, no dust, no neighbouring star close enough to be touched by it, and simply travels on, thinning toward nothing, into a dark too wide to cross. A star at the centre of that void could burn through its entire life, 10 billion years of light pouring off it in every direction, and in all that time not one of its rays would ever land on another sun. 10 billion years of light, enough to have lit 1,000 worlds, had there been worlds near enough to light, enough to have warmed oceans and driven weather and fed life across a whole crowded region, had there been a crowded region anywhere within reach, and across the whole of it, the entire lifetime of the star, from the first moment it ignited to the last flicker before it died, not one ray reaches another star. The light does not connect anything to anything. It is poured out in full every second of 10 billion years into a dark that has nothing in it to catch even a fraction of it. The star shines its whole life, and the shining touches nothing. That is the thing the void does that nothing else does. It breaks the quiet assumption underneath the whole idea of light, the assumption no one thinks to question, that light is a kind of reaching, that to shine is to touch something somewhere, that a star's brightness is a connection between it and the rest of the universe. In a galaxy, that assumption holds. Light reaches, light lands, light is contact, the most basic contact there is, the way one part of the universe announces itself to another. In the void, light is not contact, it is just loss. The star gives everything it has, the full output of 10 billion years, faithful to its furnace, bright as physics allows, and the universe out here is too empty to catch any of it. The light is not conserved as contact, it is wasted into the dark, almost all of it, almost always, for the whole life of the star. Right now, that star's light is leaving it at 300,000 kilometers every second, and even at that speed it is falling into a gap so wide that most of it will travel for the rest of cosmic history and touch nothing. Not slow light, not weak light, the fastest thing the universe has, at full strength, pouring out without pause, and the dark is so large that the overwhelming majority of it will cross the entire remaining age of the universe and arrive nowhere, land on nothing, warm no surface, be seen by no eye. The fastest thing there is, defeated not by anything in its way, not by any obstacle or barrier, but by the sheer absence of anything in its way at all. There is nothing to stop the light. That is precisely the problem. There is nothing in every direction for as far as the light can ever travel, and so the light, having nothing to reach, reaches nothing. There is a particular kind of quiet in that, and it is not the quiet anyone first expects. Not the quiet of an empty room, which is only the absence of sound, a temporary hush. It is the quiet of a thing doing its utmost, completely, faithfully, for the whole of its existence, and that utmost mattering to nothing. The star is not failing. It burns exactly as a star should, as brightly as the laws of physics permit, holding nothing back, true to its own nature for 10 billion years without pause or fault. The failure, if it can even be called that, belongs to the space around it. The dark that is simply too large and too empty for any of that faithfulness to find a home. The star does everything right, and it does not matter, and there is no one to know it does not matter, and the light goes out into the dark and is gone. Sit a moment longer with what it would mean for that light if a single ray could be followed. It leaves the star's surface as part of the Great Flood, indistinguishable from the rest, racing outward at the one unbreakable speed. It crosses the place where a planet would be, if there were a planet and there is not. It crosses the place where dust would scatter it, if there were dust and there is not. It crosses the place where another star's light would meet it, mingle with it, and there is no other star. On and on, the ray travels, through a dark that offers it nothing, for 100 million years, for 300 million, for longer, never striking, never landing, never being absorbed or reflected or seen, until the universe itself runs down around it, and still it has touched nothing. One ray, out of a flood of them, out of 10 billion years of flood. And every other ray the star ever shed has the same story. Compare that to the light of a star inside a galaxy, and the waste of the void comes into focus. A star in a crowded place sheds its light into a sky full of things to catch it. Some of it strikes neighbouring stars, some warms the planets that circle it, some scatters off dust into the soft glow that fills a galaxy's arms, some travels far enough to be gathered ages later by an eye or an instrument on a distant world, and to become, in that gathering, a point of light in someone's night. The light of a galaxy's star is spent, used, woven into the brightness of a crowded place. Part of the great mutual shining of 100 billion suns lighting one another's skies. The void star's light is spent too, in the sense that it leaves and never comes back. But it is spent on nothing. It buys no warmth, no colour, no point of light in any sky. It is the same light, the same flood, the same faithful furnace, pouring out into a place that has nothing to give it back, and nothing to do with it but let it pass. And yet the emptiest place ever mapped did not get that way because nothing ever went there. It got that way because of something that is still happening, right now, to every galaxy in the sky, including this one. The void is not a place where the universe simply forgot to put things, an oversight, a region left blank by chance. It is a place the universe is actively making, wider every moment, emptier every age, and the process that makes it is not finished and not slowing. It is the most important thing the universe is doing, and it is doing it everywhere, to everything, all the time, including here, including now, including the very galaxy this story is told from. The gap is not just enormous then, it is opening wider, and the reason it is opening, the force behind the widening, is the single most consequential fact about the universe there is. The thing that decides not only how empty the dark is now, but how empty it is going to become, and what, in the very end, will be left able to see any of it at all. The void the lone star fell through is not a fixed place it happened to land in. It is a preview of a process that has the whole universe in its grip, and the process is only getting started. Set the lone star aside for a moment, and bring two galaxies into the frame instead. Far apart, each a great wheel of light, with the dark between them. Watch the gap, not the galaxies, the gap, because the gap is doing something, slowly, steadily, and it is the thing the whole rest of the story turns on, the thing that was hiding underneath every distance named so far. The two galaxies are not moving toward each other, and they are not moving apart in the ordinary sense, the way two ships drift apart on the sea, each under its own power, crossing the water that lies between them. The water itself is growing, the space between the two galaxies is stretching, new distance appearing in the gap. The galaxies carried apart not because either one is travelling anywhere, but because the space that separates them is expanding, swelling, opening wider with every passing second. Neither galaxy moves, both stay where they are, and still the gap between them grows, because the thing that the gap is made of, space itself, is getting larger. This is the fact that reorganizes everything that came before. Every earlier view treated the void as a vast but stable distance, a wide gap, fixed, enormous but at least holding still, a thing that could in principle be crossed if only something moved fast enough for long enough. It is not holding still. The space is expanding, and the expansion is not slowing down. It is speeding up. The loneliness of the void is not a starting condition the universe was simply born with and has carried ever since. It is a process with a direction, getting worse, always worse, and the direction is always toward more distance, more separation, more dark. The gap is not a fact, it is a verb, it is happening. The expansion of space is the largest motion there is, and it works on everything that is not held together by some force stronger than itself. Within a galaxy, gravity binds the stars tightly enough that the expansion cannot pull them apart. Within the solar system, the sun's grip holds the planets fast against it. Within a single atom, forces far stronger than gravity hold the parts together, and the expansion has no purchase at all. But across the great distances between galaxies, where gravity thins almost to nothing and no other force reaches, the expansion wins, and the galaxies are carried apart from one another on a swelling tide of new space, faster and faster as the ages pass, with nothing between them strong enough to hold them close. What drives the speeding up has a name that names a mystery. It is called dark energy, and what it is remains unknown, one of the deepest open questions there is. But what it does is measured and certain. It is a pressure built into space itself, a tendency of the emptiness to expand, woven into the vacuum so that empty space is not inert, but pushes gently outward everywhere at once. And the more space there is, the more of this pressure there is to push, so the expansion feeds on its own results, growing faster as the universe grows larger, every new stretch of space adding its own push to the widening. The universe is not coasting apart on momentum from the beginning. It is accelerating apart, driven harder every moment by the very space the acceleration creates. That self-feeding quality is what makes the outcome certain, rather than merely likely. An expansion that was only coasting, carrying momentum from the beginning, and slowly losing it to the inward pull of all the matter in the universe, might in principle have slowed, stopped, even reversed, the galaxies falling back together in the end. For a long time that was an open question. The fate of the universe genuinely undecided, balanced between expansion and collapse. The measurements settled it, and they settled it the harsh way. The expansion is not slowing, it is speeding up, pushed by a force that grows as space grows, and a force like that does not run out and does not reverse. Once it has the upper hand, it keeps it forever, and the separation it drives only deepens. The universe will not fall back together. The verdict is in, and it is one way, and the one way is apart. An acceleration like that has a terrible consequence for what can ever be reached. Because the galaxies are being carried apart faster and faster, there comes a distance at which a galaxy is receding so quickly, swept along on so much expanding space between here and there, that it is moving away faster than light can close the gap. The light tries, the light always tries, at its one fixed speed, the fastest anything can go. But past a certain distance, the space between is being added faster than the light can cross it, and a beam setting out towards such a galaxy would find new space appearing ahead of it, faster than it could eat into the space already there, falling behind, losing ground, never arriving, no matter how long it travelled. That distance has a value and a pair of names. The point where galaxies recede at the speed of light sits near 14 billion light-years out, a boundary called the Hubble radius, and a little beyond it lies a harder line still, the cosmic event horizon, roughly 16 billion light-years away. And the meaning of that line is absolute. Light leaving a galaxy now, from beyond that horizon, will never reach us. Not in a billion years, not in a trillion, not in any length of time the universe will ever have. The space between is opening too fast, and the gap can never be closed by anything, ever. The horizon is not a wall, nothing stops at it. It is simply the line past which the widening of space outruns the speed of light, and so the line past which contact, in any direction, is permanently impossible. Here is the part that turns the night sky into something other than what it looks like. The majority of the galaxies visible in the sky are already beyond that line. Their light still arrives, the old light that set out long ago when the gap between here and there was smaller and could still be crossed. And that ancient light is still coming in, still landing in telescopes, still painting those galaxies onto the dark for anyone who looks. But the galaxies themselves have already crossed beyond reach. A signal sent toward them now, at the speed of light, would never arrive. They are visible and unreachable at the same time. They can be seen, that is all that will ever be done with them. Seen and never reached, never answered, never touched by anything sent after them. Sit with how strange that is, because it severs two things that have always seemed like one. Seeing a thing and being able to reach a thing have always gone together, near enough, in all of ordinary experience. To see a mountain is to be able, in principle, to walk to it. To see a light across a field is to be able to move toward it, to close the distance, to arrive. The two have never come apart, but across the great distances, the expansion has cut sight loose from contact entirely, sheared one clean off the other. The light arrives, the connection does not, and never can. Most of what the sky shows is already gone in every sense that matters except the one that lets it still be seen, and even that seeing is borrowed, an old image of a place that has already left, arriving like a letter from someone who has since moved beyond any address. It is worse in a precise way than simply being far away. The atoms now visible as those distant galaxies are not arriving as the galaxies are. The light is a portrait of where they used to be, a picture painted long ago and only now landing, and many of the originals have already crossed out of the reachable universe while their old image still drifts in toward any eye that waits for it. The sky is partly a gallery of things that are, in any meaningful sense, no longer there. The light is real, and it is present, and it is arriving, but the galaxies it shows have moved on, past the line, beyond return, and only the painting remains, arriving late, outliving the reachability of the thing it shows. The sky is in large part a record of a universe that has already gone. Of all the galaxies the sky reveals, only a small fraction could ever be reached, even by a signal sent right now at the speed of light, even given all the time the universe has left to run. The rest are already lost. Visible, bright, painted clearly on the dark, and lost. The reachable universe is a small bright core inside a much larger sphere of the merely visible, and the merely visible is itself a small bright bubble inside an unimaginably larger dark that sends no light at all, having receded so far and so fast that even its most ancient light can no longer arrive from across the gulf. Three nested regions then, the few that can still be reached, the many that can only be seen, and beyond both, the vast majority that can neither be reached nor seen, gone entirely, sealed away behind the horizon by the relentless widening of the space between. The numbers behind that are their own quiet shock. Of all the galaxies whose light reaches the present sky, the great majority lie beyond the reach of any signal sent now, even at light's own speed, even with eternity to make the crossing. Only those close enough that the expanding space has not yet outrun the light could ever, in principle, be touched. The rest, the overwhelming bulk of the visible universe, are already cut off, their light still arriving out of the past while the galaxies themselves drift forever beyond any possible answer. The sky looks like an invitation, a universe spread out and waiting. It is mostly a memorial, a field of lights that can be looked at and nothing more, each one a place that has already passed out of reach while its image lingers. The light of those receding galaxies tells the story of their leaving in its very colour. As each galaxy is carried away faster and faster, its light is stretched by the expanding space it has to cross, drawn out to longer and longer wavelengths, sliding down from blue toward red, and then past red into wavelengths no eye can see at all. It is the same drop a fading note makes as its source pulls away, the pitch sinking lower as the distance opens, the sound deepening and softening until the note falls below the lowest tone that can be heard, and the source, still there, still sounding, goes silent simply because it has moved too far to be heard. The galaxy reddens and dims and slides down the spectrum into a silence that is not the silence of having stopped, but the silence of having gone out of range, carried past the edge of what light can deliver. Hold the camera on one such galaxy as it goes, and watch the leaving play out in full. It hangs in the dark, a great spiral wheel like any other, its light arriving across an enormous gulf, the image already ancient by the time it lands. But the image is changing, year by year, age by age. The light grows redder, the blue of its young stars sliding toward orange, toward red, the whole galaxy deepening in colour like an ember cooling. Its brightness fades, not because its stars are dimming, but because each wave of its light arrives more stretched, more spread, more drained of energy by the swelling space it crossed. The galaxy sinks down the spectrum, redder and fainter, until its light slides past red into the infrared that no eye can catch, and then past that, stretched beyond any instrument, until the galaxy is simply gone from the sky, not dimmed to a faint point but erased, carried whole across a line from which nothing returns. It is still there, it is still shining, and it will never be seen again. Right now, somewhere past the edge of what can be seen, a galaxy is crossing the line beyond which its light will never reach us again, going dark not by burning out but by being carried away. It is not dying, its stars still burn as brightly as ever, its worlds, if it has them, still turn under their own suns, but the last of its light that will ever arrive here has already set out, somewhere in the past, and everything it gives off after this moment will fall forever behind the widening gap, never to land, never to be gathered, never to be seen by anything on this side of the horizon. From here, the galaxy simply ends, slipping over an edge that no light can climb back across, present and shining, and permanently, completely gone. So everything is sliding apart, and most of it is already gone beyond return. That is the rule, the overwhelming direction of the whole universe, separation without end, the dark widening between every island of light, the horizon closing in as the galaxies cross it one by one. But it is not quite everything. There is a small exception, a handful of galaxies that are not receding, that are instead falling together, drawn close by gravity, in open defiance of the general retreat. And the fate of that small bound handful is the one piece of the sky that does not simply vanish over the edge. The universe is separating into one outcome for almost everything, and a different outcome for one small island. The island's outcome is the one that matters most here, because it is ours, and it is not the escape it might first seem to be. Against the great retreat, hold one small place where the motion runs the other way. Two galaxies, not flying apart but tilting toward each other, leaning across the dark on a slow curve that bends them together rather than apart. The Milky Way and Andromeda, the great spiral that is its nearest large neighbour, two enormous wheels of light separated by about 2.5 million light-years of empty space, and closing. In a universe whose every other motion is outward, these two are falling in. They are falling toward each other. Across all that distance, against the expansion that pushes everything else away, the gravity between these two giants is enough to overcome the widening, to reach across the gap and pull, slowly, patiently, drawing them together over billions of years on a collision course that nothing now will turn aside. The expansion is trying to carry them apart as it carries everything apart. It is losing. On this one scale, between these two particular giants, gravity is the stronger hand, and gravity is pulling them home to each other. This is the exception to the rule of separation, and it does not soften the rule. It makes it heavier. Because the reason these two are falling together while everything else flies apart is simple, and it sets the final shape of things to come. Gravity still wins on small scales, where galaxies are close enough and bound tightly enough. The local pull of their own shared gravity is stronger than the push of the expanding space between them, and they stay together, held, gathered, while the rest of the universe drains away around them. Closeness is the only defense against the widening, and only a few galaxies are close enough to mount it. The Milky Way and Andromeda are not alone in this small bound region. They belong to a group, a cluster of roughly 80 galaxies, spread across about 10 million light-years of space. Most of them small, 2 of them large, all of them held together by their shared gravity, all of them moving as one bound system through the larger expansion of the universe. It is called the local group, and it is gravitationally bound, and that phrase carries a single fact with enormous weight. The expansion of space will not pull it apart, while the rest of the universe separates and recedes and vanishes over the horizon. The local group holds. It stays whole. It is an island that the rising tide cannot drown, because its own gravity holds it above the water. The line between what stays and what goes is sharp, and it runs close. Beyond the edge of the local group, the next large clusters of galaxies are already on the far side of the balance, far enough that the expansion outpulls their gravity, and they are receding, slowly now but faster with every age, on their way to the horizon along with everything more distant. The local group sits just inside the line, bound, while regions only a little farther out sit just beyond it, departing. There was no guarantee the Milky Way would land on the surviving side. It is not a matter of merit or of size. It is a matter of distance, of having neighbours close enough that gravity could close the deal before the expansion pulled them out of reach. A little farther apart at the start, and even Andromeda would have been a departing light instead of an approaching one. The island holds together by a margin, and everything past that margin is already leaving. Within that bound island, the great galaxies are not merely holding their distance from one another. Some of them are closing. The Milky Way and Andromeda, falling toward each other now, are expected to meet billions of years from now, 2 spirals colliding slowly across hundreds of millions of years, a collision so vast and so slow that no single moment of it would look like a crash. Their stars will pass through one another, almost untouched, the spaces between stars so wide that few will ever collide, but the shapes of the 2 galaxies will tear and tangle in the gravity of the meeting. The graceful spiral arms pulled into long streamers, the 2 great wheels winding into one. Over an immense span of time it will settle, the chaos calming, the streamers folding inward, until what remains is a single larger galaxy, one wheel of light where there had been 2. The island does not just survive, it fuses tighter, its great members merging into fewer and larger ones, drawing in toward a single centre. For a long stretch of that merging, the sky over any world caught in it would be a thing without equal in the present universe. 2 galaxies hang in the same sky at once, both grown huge with nearness, their arms stretched into bridges and tails by the pull between them. Great rivers of stars drawn out across the dark. New stars igniting in the shock where the 2 clouds of gas slam together and compress. It would be the brightest the local sky ever gets, the last great flaring of light before the long fading, a final blaze as 2 galaxies pour themselves into one. And then, over hundreds of millions of years more, the blaze settles, the streamers fall back, the new stars age, and the 2 become a single rounder, calmer galaxy, its spiral grace gone, its gas largely spent, settling toward the long quiet of a galaxy that has finished making most of the stars it will ever make. But survival inside the group buys no escape from the larger fate. Everything outside the local group continues to recede and to accelerate away faster every age, sliding toward the cosmic event horizon and across it, reddening and dimming and going silent one by one. The bound island holds together, but it holds together alone, and more alone with every passing era, as the rest of the sky empties out around it. The local group does not escape isolation. It earns the opposite. It becomes a single sealed island in a sky that is steadily emptying around it, the one thing left while everything else departs, held together perfectly and surrounded by nothing. The word bound carries more than it seems to. It does not only mean the group will not fly apart, it means the group is sealed off, set on its own, cut loose from the rest of the universe to follow a separate fate. Bound to itself is the same as bound away from everything else. The 80 galaxies of the local group will share a future with one another, and with nothing beyond, their gravity binding them into a single destiny, while the door to the rest of the cosmos closes. To be bound, in the end, is to be quarantined, held safe and held apart at once. The safety and the apartness the very same thing. Time does not rush any of this. The merger of the Milky Way and Andromeda lies billions of years ahead. The full emptying of the sky lies far beyond even that. There is no moment of sudden loss, no night when the sky visibly changes, no event a single life could witness. It is all slow, slower than the slow growth of mountains, slower than the drift of continents, a change measured against the lifetimes of stars rather than the lifetimes of worlds. But slow is not the same as gentle, and slow is not the same as uncertain. The direction never wavers. The island draws in on itself, the sky draws down to dark, and every age that passes carries the future a little further along the one road it is on. Picture the two approaches set against each other, because the contrast is the whole shape of the future. The Milky Way and Andromeda come together like two enormous storm systems on a collision course, vast and slow, wheeling toward one another across the dark, certain to fold into one larger system given enough time, a single great front where there had been two. That is the near weather, the local sky, two giants merging into one. But the rest of the sky's weather, every other system, every distant front, every far galaxy and cluster, drifts steadily toward the horizon and over it, and never returns. The wider sky does not clear into calm, it clears into emptiness. One by one, the distant fronts slide past the edge and are gone, until only the one merged storm is left, turning alone over a world with no other weather anywhere, in any direction, ever again. And unlike weather, none of it comes back around. A storm that drifts over the horizon on Earth may circle the world and return, or another may follow behind it. The sky never empty for long. The cosmic horizon is not like that. What crosses it is gone for good, with no circling back, no second front behind the first, no weather anywhere beyond the one that remains. The sky does not cycle. It empties once, permanently, each departing light a thing that will never have a successor, until the local storm turns alone, beneath a dome that will stay clear of everything else for the rest of time. That is the end state for this corner of the universe. Not destruction, not a crash or a burning or a tearing apart, just a single merged island of stars, bound forever by its own gravity, holding together through all the ages to come, with everything else, every other galaxy, every distant light, every neighbour and stranger alike, gone from reach, receded beyond the horizon, carried away on the expanding dark. The island endures. That is the strange mercy and the strange cruelty of it together. The island is not destroyed. The island is preserved, whole, intact, and the island is, in the end, completely alone, the last lit thing in a sky that has emptied of everything else. There is a particular weight in being the thing that survives. The receding galaxies, in their way, are spared what comes next, carried off beyond the horizon, while the sky still holds other lights, each one departing into a dark that, from its own vantage, still has neighbours in it for a while longer. The local group does not depart, it stays. It remains behind to watch the sky empty, age after age, light after light winking out beyond the edge, until it alone is left, the witness to its own complete isolation, the one island that did not get carried away, and so must remain to see that everything else was. Survival, here, is not rescue. It is the sentence of being the last one in the room after everyone else has gone, with the door shut behind them and no way to follow. So the final question is the one that has been waiting since the very opening, since the first image of the lone star burning into nothing. The lone star was the loneliest thing the story could find at the start, a single sun adrift in the void with nothing near it. But it is not in the end the loneliest thing here. The loneliest thing is the place the island itself is heading, the merged galaxy in its emptied sky, holding together perfectly with nothing anywhere around it. And the island is heading there now, slowly, certainly, on a path as fixed as the stars was when the slingshot set it. The lone star at least fell through a universe that still had other lights in its sky, however far. The island is falling toward a future where there are no other lights at all. What does that island sky actually look like once the emptying is complete, once the last far galaxy has crossed the edge and gone? That is the last thing to see, and it is the hardest, because it is not only empty, it is empty in a way that hides its own emptiness. Leap forward now, further than the story has leapt yet, 100 billion years and more into the future, to a sky that has finished emptying. The merged island galaxy turns in the center of the view, the single great wheel of stars that the Milky Way in Andromeda became, settled now into one shape after ages of folding together, and around it, in every direction, there is nothing. Black, not the partial dark of the present sky, scattered with the faint light of distant galaxies. Not a dark with anything hidden in it for a sharp enough eye to find. Total dark. No other galaxy visible anywhere, in any direction, to any instrument however powerful. The sky outside the island is empty, and it is empty all the way down. Hold the camera over a world in that far future island, if such a world still turns, and let its night come. The sun sets, whatever sun it is, one of the cooling stars of the merged galaxy. The local sky fills with the island's own stars, near and familiar, a crowd of them wheeling overhead the way stars have always wheeled. And then the eye goes to the spaces between the near stars, the gaps where, in any earlier age, the faint light of other galaxies would have shone, the soft smudges of distant islands scattered across the dark. There is nothing there. The gaps are perfectly black, not dim, not faint. Black, with nothing in them at all, no matter how long the eye adjusts, no matter how deep the instrument looks. The home stars, and then the edge of the home galaxy, and then nothing, in every direction, all the way out, forever. A sky that is one island wide and then empty to the end of everything. This is the completed work of the expansion, and it is worse than separation. Every earlier section assumed the universe could be read, that the evidence was there to be found by anything that looked hard enough, that the history of everything was written into the sky and waiting to be deciphered. This future reveals the cruelest turn of all. The expansion does not only carry the galaxies away, it carries away the proof that they were ever there at all. The void does not merely isolate the island, it erases the rest of the universe from the island's view, completely and permanently, leaving no trace, no hint, no faint surviving signal that any of it ever existed. Follow what happens, step by step, because each step removes something that cannot be recovered. In roughly 100 to 150 billion years, all the galaxies outside the local group will have receded beyond the cosmic event horizon, every one of them. The light they sent before crossing will have long since arrived and passed and faded. The light they send afterward is forever behind the widening gap, never to arrive. One by one, across the long ages, they redden and dim and wink out, not dying but departing, until the last external galaxy slips over the horizon and the sky outside the island goes fully, finally black, and stays that way for the rest of time. And the oldest light of all goes with them. The cosmic microwave background, the faint afterglow of the beginning, the ancient warmth that fills all of space tonight and reaches every cubic meter of every void. That too is being stretched by the expansion, drawn out to longer and longer wavelengths as the ages pass. Given enough time, it stretches so far that it falls below any wavelength that can be detected at all, fading from a faint signal to no signal whatsoever. The proof of the beginning, the leftover heat that tells of the hot, dense origin of everything, the single most important piece of evidence that the universe ever had a birth, thins and stretches and drops below the threshold of any possible measurement and is gone. Not destroyed, just stretched past the point where anything ever could find it. The loss of that afterglow is the loss of the universe's birth certificate. The cosmic microwave background is how the beginning is known at all, the direct light of the young hot cosmos, the strongest evidence there is that the universe was once dense and fiery and small. While it can still be read, the origin of everything is an open book. Once it stretches below detection, the book closes and there is no other copy. A mind in the emptied future could not deduce the hot beginning from anything left in its sky, because the one thing that records it would be gone, drained away by the same expansion that emptied the sky of galaxies. The universe would have not only hidden its contents but burned its own history, and done it so slowly that no one was there to see the pages go. Now stand at the end of that process and look out from the island and see what is left to be known. Whatever exists then, whatever minds or instruments look out from the single merged galaxy, will see only their own galaxy, its own stars, its own light, and beyond it, in every direction, an empty black sky, no other galaxies, no afterglow of a beginning, no evidence of expansion, because there is nothing left in the sky to watch recede, no distant light whose reddening could reveal that space was stretching, nothing outside the island to suggest the island is not the whole of everything that is. And from everything it can measure, it will conclude that its galaxy is the entire universe, static, alone, with no beginning visible and nothing beyond, a single island of stars in an eternal empty dark, with no sign that there was ever anything else, no hint of the 100 billion galaxies that once filled the sky, no trace of the hot, dense birth that started it all in fire. The conclusion will be wrong, completely wrong. The universe was vast and full and born in a furnace, and the rest of it is still out there beyond the horizon, receding, intact, real. But the evidence will be gone, every piece of it carried past reach, and the mind that looks out will have no way to know it is wrong. It will be reasoning correctly from everything available to it, drawing the only conclusion the evidence supports, and the evidence will be a lie of omission, written across the whole sky by the expansion of space. There is no error in the reasoning that gets it wrong. That is the part that does not let go. A mind in that future would not be careless or unobservant. It could measure everything in its sky with perfect precision, reason flawlessly from every fact available, build instruments of any power it pleased, and still arrive at a false picture of the universe, because the facts themselves would be incomplete in a way nothing could detect. The truth would not be hidden behind a difficulty that effort could overcome. It would be hidden behind a horizon that no effort can cross, the evidence not merely hard to find but physically absent, carried beyond the reach of any possible observation. Good reasoning from complete information gives truth. Good reasoning from information the universe has quietly amputated gives a confident, careful, thorough lie, and leaves no way to tell the difference. This is the callback the whole story has been carrying, and it lands here with its full weight. Far back, near the beginning of all this, in the Bootes void, there was a galaxy whose sky was nearly black, a place so empty that a civilization living there would not have discovered other galaxies existed until it built telescopes powerful enough to see across the gulf. That was a local accident, one unlucky address in a universe that was otherwise full and readable, and the telescopes, eventually, given time and effort, would have found the truth waiting at the limit of their reach. The emptiness there was deep but not absolute, and the truth was hidden but not erased. In the far future, that accident becomes universal and permanent and total. The whole sky becomes the boot is void. Only far worse, because the gap is no longer merely large. It is expanding faster than light can cross it, and no telescope, however vast, however perfect, can ever see across a gap that widens faster than its light can travel. The not knowing is no longer local. It is everywhere. It is forever, and no instrument that could ever be built can break it. Set the slow horror of that into something the hand has touched. It is the demolition of an entire structure, an enormous building taken down not all at once in a single visible collapse, but disassembled so patiently, so gradually, beam by beam and wall by wall across an age, that anyone arriving after the last piece was carried off would never guess a building had stood on that ground at all. They would see an empty lot, level and bare, and call it the way things have always been, the natural state of the ground, never suspecting the floors and rooms and stairwells that once filled the air above it, never imagining the structure that the slow removal had erased. The expansion is that patient demolition carried out on the entire universe, beam by beam, light by light, and the minds that come after the last beam is gone will stand on the empty lot of the sky and call it eternal, and there will be nothing anywhere to tell them otherwise. Right now, this is already happening, slowly. Every distant galaxy a little farther gone than it was a moment ago, the erasure underway. Not a future event, but a present one running too slowly to feel. The galaxies in tonight's sky are already receding. The afterglow of the beginning is already stretching, already cooling, already on its long slide toward the undetectable. The proof of everything is already, by infinitesimal degrees, on its way out of reach. The demolition began long ago, before there was anyone to watch it, and it has never once stopped. What the far future shows is not a different universe with a different fate. It is this universe, the same one, the very one the looking is done from, simply carried further along the road it is already on. The empty sky is not a prophecy of some other world, it is a description of where the present is going, at a pace too slow for any single life to watch, but certain and underway and ours. The island will be alone, then, its sky black, the rest of the universe erased from view, the truth of everything beyond it carried past any possibility of recovery. But the same fate that empties the sky does not stop at the edge of the island. It comes inward. It works on the stars themselves, on the light inside the galaxy, on the warmth that remains gathered in the one surviving wheel. The dark does not halt politely at the island's border and leave the island lit forever in compensation for its loneliness. It comes in, and it has all the time in the universe to finish the work, because the universe from here on is mostly time and almost nothing else. Let the pace ease now, and the camera settle, and follow the island's own light to its end, far past the emptying of the sky, deeper into the future than any number gives a real feeling for. The merged galaxy is still there, but it is changing. Its stars are going out, not all at once, but one by one, across spans of time so long they make the emptying of the sky look quick. The great wheel of light dimming from a blaze to a glow to a scatter of cooling embers in a dark that no longer has any edges at all, no horizon, no outside, no other thing anywhere to give it shape. This is the last part of the process, and it reaches into a future so distant that the numbers stop meaning anything, and only the direction remains. Stars need fuel. They burn by crushing light gas into heavier elements deep in their cores, and every star, in shining, spends down a supply that does not come back, that cannot be refilled once it is gone. A galaxy makes new stars from the raw gas that drifts between the old ones, gathering it, compressing it, igniting it into new suns. But that gas is finite too, and as it is spent into star after star across the ages, less of it remains, and the making slows and approaches its end. In time, the gas runs out. Star formation, the steady birth of new suns that has lit galaxies since the beginning, that has been the one renewing thing in all this story, eventually ceases, on timescales reaching into the trillions of years and beyond, as the last of the raw material is locked away into stars that will never give it back. After that, no new stars are born anywhere ever again. The galaxy holds only the stars it already has, a fixed and dwindling population, and those stars, one after another, burn down. The bright ones go first, fast and brilliant and brief, blazing through their fuel in mere millions of years and dying young. The small ones last far longer, the dim red embers that burn slow and stingy, hoarding their fuel for trillions of years. But even they end. Every star that has ever shone runs down at last, and there is no replacement waiting, and the galaxy fades from a wheel of fire to a field of cooling remnants. Watch the last of them go. Near the very end of the age of stars, the galaxy is no longer a wheel of light. It is a sparse scatter of dull red points, the longest-lived embers spread thin across a darkening field, each one burning low and slow on the last of its fuel. They wink out one at a time, with long ages of dark between, a red point fading to nothing here, another there, the field growing emptier and dimmer with each loss, and no new light ever rising to take a vanished one's place. The intervals between the last few stars dying stretch longer than the entire age of bright galaxies that came before. And then, after the longest wait of all, the last ember cools below the faintest glow and goes out, and the galaxy that was the Milky Way in Andromeda and the last island of light in this part of the universe holds not one burning star anywhere in it. Just the cold remnants, drifting in a dark with no edges and no other thing in it anywhere. What remains after that is the thing the whole story has been moving toward from the first image. The cold, the dark, the slow thinning of everything toward an emptiness more complete than anything yet seen, as the dead remnants of the stars drift apart and the last warmth bleeds away into a space that only ever grows. The matter that was once gathered into bright, crowded galaxies that blazed and made worlds and lit skies spreads over spans of time beyond any counting, until it is so dilute, so scattered, so impossibly far between, that the few atoms per cubic meter of the intergalactic medium, the thin cold void the lone star fell through at the very beginning of all this, would look crowded by comparison. Hold that against the opening, because it closes the longest loop in the story. The void where the lone star burned, 1 atom per cubic meter, 2.7 degrees above the bottom of all cold, the emptiest place the story could find at the start, the place held up as the true face of the universe. It seemed like the limit then, the deepest emptiness there was. It was not the limit, it was not empty enough. It was an early glimpse, a preview, a place far thinner and colder than the crowded galaxies, but far thicker and warmer than what is finally coming. The void the lone star fell through was not the exception to the universe. It was not even the floor of the universe's emptiness. It was only an early sketch of the universe's ending, drawn while there were still stars burning to light it, and an observer near enough to call it empty. The 1 atom per cubic meter, the figure that opened the whole story as the very picture of emptiness, becomes by the end a memory of fullness. In the final thinning, as the dead matter spreads across an ever-growing space, the density falls far below that opening figure, lower and lower without limit, until a single atom has not 1 cubic meter to itself, but vastly more. An emptiness beside which the void the lone star fell through would seem busy, populated, almost warm. The emptiest place the story could find at the beginning turns out to have been one of the more crowded places the universe will ever hold. The dark was not deepest in the void. The void was only where the dark first showed its face, while there was still light enough to see it by. The whole picture inverts one final time, and this is the inversion the entire story was built to reach. The void was never the gap between the real things. The galaxies, the stars, the warmth, the light, all the bright crowded matter that seems so solid and permanent and important, those were the temporary part, the brief flaring of structure in a universe whose settled, lasting, true state is dark and thin and cold. The emptiness is not what is left over when the real things are taken away. The emptiness is what is real. The bright things were the passing exception, a short chapter of light near the beginning, and the dark is the rule, and the rule outlasts everything, because the rule is what everything is becoming. There is one image that holds it whole. The universe of stars is a candle that was lit once, near the beginning, and has been burning down ever since, its flame the warm, bright thing that draws every eye. And the dark around it is not the absence of the candle, not a gap waiting to be filled, not a mere background against which the flame is the real event. The dark is the room. The room was there before the candle was lit, vast and cold and complete, and the room will be there after the flame gutters out, unchanged, indifferent, the same room it always was. The candle was the brief thing, the visitor, the passing light. The room was always going to outlast the flame. The flame is what draws the eye, so the eye calls the flame the point, and the room the emptiness around it. But the room is the larger truth, and the flame was only ever a moment of light inside it, already on its way to going out from the instant it was lit. The star is still falling. It has not changed since the beginning of this. It is the rest of the universe that has been moving, quietly, in the same direction, toward the same place. Right now the galaxies are still close enough to see. The Milky Way still has Andromeda falling toward it, and 100 billion other galaxies still hang in the dark within reach of a telescope. But every one of them is sliding away. The space between them is growing, and the growing is speeding up. Galaxy by galaxy, the sky is being emptied. In something like 100 billion years, the last of the outside galaxies will cross the line beyond which their light can never return, and the sky over this part of the universe will go dark for good, except for the single merged island of stars left behind. Whatever lives there then will look up into a black and silent sky and see one galaxy, alone, with nothing around it in any direction. And from everything it can measure, it will be right. It will have no way to know there was ever anything else. The evidence will be gone. The dark will have closed over it completely, the way it has already closed over that one star falling through the void tonight. The void was never the empty space between the real things. The void is what the universe is becoming. The galaxies are only the part that has not finished dissolving yet. And there is a deeper question underneath this one, the one that does not let go. If the dark erases the proof of everything that came before, then somewhere out there, in a sky already emptied, something may already be looking up and seeing nothing, and calling that nothing the whole universe. The question is not whether the lights go out. The question is who is already living in the dark and does not know it.